Winter is coming.
Where are my dragons?
In the Game of Thrones, you either win or you die.
The things I do for love.
A Lannister always pays his debts.
Chaos is a ladder.
Hold on.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
We
We are the Rewatchers on the wall.
Oysters, clams, and cuckoos. Oysters, clams, and cuckoos. Come get some oysters. You want an oyster? How about a clam? Cuckle? Fine. Fuck you. Oysters, clams, and cuckoos.
Arya's a salesperson. I didn't see it coming. That's the ultimate end.
You wanted her to be an assassin, and she's actually just gonna be a seller. She's gonna be a merchant. Seller. She's like, get me out of this. Welcome to the podcast.
The podcast.
It's funny that we recorded some without a name, and that we have a name. I still don't use it in the intro.
Rewatchers on the wall.
I'm Mitchell Marshall here with Tyler Harris, Tyler McKinley, and Riley Harris, and we're talking about Season 5, Episodes 5 through 8. God, that's the first time I've ever gotten the middle seasons right in one, and I had to refer to it. Tyler, why don't you give us a nice summary of what happened in these episodes, really fastly?
Okay.
Barristan says Grey Worm is severely injured. Dany calls a meeting of the five families and takes them to lunch with their dragons. Aemon talks to Sam about Daenerys. Aemon tells Jon to kill the boy and let the man be born. Jon asks Tormund for help from the wildlings. Tormund agrees as long as Jon goes with him. Stannis grammar Nazis the Night's Watch meeting. Pod and Brienne are keeping an eye on the Boltons. Miranda and Ramsay make aggressive love to each other. Sansa gets a secret message. Miranda introduces Sansa to Reek. Reek tells Ramsay about it, so Ramsay makes Reek apologize to Sansa at the world's most awkward family dinner. Walda is pregnant with a boy. Yay! Sam tells Stannis how he killed the White Walkers. Stannis is ready to attack the Boltons. Grey Worm and Missandei kiss. Dany tells his daughter that she will reopen the fighting pits and marry him in an attempt to maintain peace in Meereen. Tyrion and Jorah sail through Valyria, see a dragon, and are attacked by stone men. Jorah got the stone skin. Arya tries to find out what the hell is going on in the House of Black and White. Nega Arya tells a lie, maybe. Tyrion tells Jorah that he killed Tywin and offers condolences for Jorah's father's death that Jorah didn't know about. A man brings a sick girl to the House of Black and White, and Arya tells a lie to make her feel better, then makes her drink from the well, and she dies. Arya finds a locked door. Tyrion and Jorah are taken by slaves. Tyrion brags about his dick. Littlefinger runs into Lancel on King's Landing. Then he meets with Cersei and basically sells what everyone he's been working with and positioned himself to become the Warden of the North. Cooper and Darnell are on their way to the Water Gardens. Dolores faces an inquest. Marjorie tells a lie, then they're both sold out by the interim brothel keeper and thrown in prison. Reek gives away Sansa at her wedding, and Ramsay makes Reek watch as he rapes Sansa. Jon and Tormund prepare to go north. Gilly visits with Aemon, and he tells her to get the baby south. Sansa begs Reek to help her. Aemon dreamt he was old. Ramsay shows Sansa the woman who offered to help after he has flayed her. Stannis is going to fight the Boltons despite the weather. Melisandre wants to offer up Shireen as a sacrifice. Gilly gets attacked by the Watch, and then they get eaten by direwolves. Sam gets some. Tyrion convinces people that he and Jorah are a team. Daario proposes to Dany. Oh, he's serious. Nah. Olenna tries to manipulate the High Sparrow. Tommen threatens to start a war at the church to save Marjorie. Myrcella doesn't want to leave Dorne. Bronn is seduced, poisoned, and cured within the space of a few minutes in one of the most confusing scenes thus far. Olenna threatens Littlefinger. Jorah fights a bunch of people and try to impress Dany. Cersei goes to visit Marjorie and who then gets a cell of her own. Thanks, Lancel. Tyrion and Jorah are standing before Dany. Tyrion advises Dany not to kill Jorah, but does exile him again. Arya is getting better at the game of faces. She starts to sell oysters, and Jaqen wants her to kill the Thin Man. Kyber visits Cersei in prison. Kevin is in town, and Tommen is not eating. Reek is still Reek. Ramsay puts together a small elite force to attack Stannis. Dany and Tyrion drink together, and Dany asks Tyrion to be her advisor. Jorah wants to fight in the big fight, and Gilly is taking care of Sam. Sam talks to Ollie about the wildlings. Cersei will not confess. Jon and Tormund arrive at Hardhome. Tormund fucks up that bone guy real good. Jon gives the free folk dragon glass, and he tells them about Mance Rayder's death. Eventually, the free folk warm up to him and agree to come. The White Walkers attack, and shit gets crazy. Jon kills a White Walker with Valyrian steel, and the White Walker raises all the dead while the wildlings sail away.
And that's it.
Oh, man.
No,
what a wild ride.
I listened to podcasts in double time, which I had to train myself to do just because I listened to too many damn podcasts. But I was listening to one of ours from season 1, and hearing you do it in double time when you're already kind of doing it in time and a half, impressive. It's a lot.
A lot of stuff.
Cool.
Man.
Let's start in Essos with Dany.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Because why not?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like what's going on here, and I think it actually kind of mirrors what's going on in King's Landing. You have a force that has not really been present, that is really throwing a wrench in things. And so here's Dany still trying to figure shit out. I guess my main question for you guys is: do you think she makes any progress in these episodes?
Yeah, I do. She is starting to do things she doesn't want to for the greater good. Which I don't know that. I mean, I don't know that you can't say that everything she's done because she wanted to. That's not true. But like, she's forging an alliance with the people to like try to attempt to stabilize the economy and government that she destabilized. She is reinstituting the fighting pits in an effort to do that. But she's also... It's starting to resemble more of what happens in King's Landing. You know what I mean? Like she's starting to make those moves. And so, I think that there's progress there. And also those worlds collide in a fun way.
Oh, I'm excited to talk about
really
that.
Excited to see.
So she's still dealing with these harpies. She's really pissed because she lost Sir Barristan, and she's trying to put the masters in their place. So she takes them down to the dragon pit, and when the dragon rips that dude's body apart, I loved it. I'm really into that. But then she lets the other masters live and decides like, oh, I'm going to marry his daughter because that's important. Marriage is a huge card. Like, we've seen the way Tywin played it. We've seen the way the Starks were ready to play it. You can only play that once, and it kind of pisses me off because I know she's trying to stabilize Meereen and she cares about these slaves and stuff, but I am still thinking long game when this happens. Yeah. The first time I saw this, I was like, you cannot waste your marriage card in Essos to stabilize Meereen. Like, that's going to be an important card at some point. And so it kind of pissed me off, but you're right. She has to make these kinds of moves. Mm-hmm. So she makes a couple big power moves with the dragons and the masters, and there's all this stuff going on with the fighting pits, but I just didn't like her putting that marriage card out there at all.
She makes a lot of rash decisions that are technically good political moves. But yeah, like you said, like in the long game, it's not sure the viability of them. And Dario then has some opinions on the matter. Mm-hmm. In another round of pillow talk with Daenerys.
Just marry me. Well, that would be a waste. I love love, but I'm not all for that, okay?
Yeah, it's, I mean, the big thing too, I feel like, is that she doesn't know what her ultimate goal is. I feel like for a long time it was get back to Westeros, take over Westeros, reinstate the Targaryens. And then she was like, well, now I'm here and I'm in a cool pyramid. And I like it. And it's like, and then it's hard. I don't know.
She's lost sight.
Yeah, I feel like it's unclear to her what her end goal is. And so I think that a lot of those decisions, like, at that point, yeah, you are making decisions to basically just make the situation you're in bearable and better. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's weird.
A blonde girl doesn't know what she wants. Very original.
Wow.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
There's a story there, folks. Probably.
Is it really? Is it?
I know. I was trying to think. I was like, oh, wait, no, there is.
Look, that's the
I
least
just like
woke
it. I
thing
bring up
that I've
stereotypes.
Yeah. We respect blondes now. Okay, this is in the '90s. All right, this is not Britney Spears and Christina
It's
Aguilera's
cool. My mom's
emergence.
blonde.
Is it really?
It's okay. Yeah.
I like that you do know Tyler's dating history. So if there was a blonde that really scorned him and pissed him off, you would know.
And then I was thinking about it. I was like, there isn't though.
No.
Wow, you're not
in my rich dating history of 2 people.
I didn't know you had such limited dating history. Your wife seems like a very nice person. Maybe she just picked you up right away. Very rant. I got okay.
Yeah, I was on the corner.
And that concludes our
Selling my
episode
stuff.
of Pillow Talk with Tyler McKinley. Let's get back to Essos. So yeah, but yeah, what else? I'm trying to think what else happened to Dany.
Should we jump to Jorah then? Because they kind
Yeah,
of
Let's talk about.
see.
Well, I do want to just reference Grey Worm and Missandei have like the most highly charged sexual scene in this show that doesn't involve actual sex, and where they are not lesbians and neither one has a penis. It just, I don't know, but I was like, wow, Grey Worm, like, you could see his fake phantom boner sticking out through those britches.
Could you?
My guy was like, man, he was into it, and he did, but it's fun because you can tell he doesn't know how to handle like this excitement or intimacy and doesn't know what it is. Probably because there's no actual like testosterone running through his testes if they're there.
There are so many unknowns.
I just got assaulted with like things I wanted to react to, but man.
But yeah, that's
Sometimes just
interesting.
rant.
It's one of those things where it's like I don't know if it matters that much, but it's fine. Yeah, I like it just fine. Like their relationship, I'm like, it's been such a slow burn up to this point too, and like I'm kind of like, I don't really know if this carries any like long-term
That's
big
true.
consequences. But it's fine. I don't
Gotta
think I'm
have
into
some
it.
personal
I'm
I think
here for
Riley's
it.
really into
I'm
it.
super
but
here
yeah.
for it. I'm really happy about it. It's just that he was like he was talking. It's like after he wakes up because he was in this kind of like comatose state after his fight,
Yeah.
and then he's like, "Oh, I was ashamed that I felt fear," but then he was afraid he wouldn't see her again, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah. It was a little over
I was
the
like,
top.
I
but it
can't.
was-
Well, I mean, for him,
It was
but
great.
it's like really over the top. But it's like really believable coming from
Yeah.
him because he's so disconnected emotionally in those ways that like you got two people who've never been really allowed to explore that at all.
And I think it reminds you that like genuine love and human connection exists because it's very, you don't see it a lot in this show. Like this might be our standard bearer. When was the last one? Like John and
The last one ended in murder, so
yeah,
Yeah, we were pretty here for Shay and Tyrion, and then
Yeah.
woof.
also
Woof.
yeah, that one went downhill
That
fast.
bitch.
But this one might be the most pure, and I think it's important to remind us of that. But yeah, it does feel like a detour at times. But I feel like we glossed over the fact that she just takes the masters down there and is like, "Hey, if this cap keeps happening, I'm just gonna burn y'all." Anyway,
Well, my dragons
sorry.
eat you.
Yeah,
They're like, "Oh, okay."
and she does let one guy get
that was
crispied
a
up.
mistake. Let's get married.
All right, that might have been too hard of a play.
You're already
Yeah.
on your knees, so we're not getting married.
She's like, it takes a lot of courage to admit you're wrong. You got 2 dragons locked up. What are you afraid of?
I was thinking he's like, I said Valar Morghulis because I didn't want to show fear, but like, of course I'm freaking scared of your dragons.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Let's go over to Tyrion. Tyrion and the homie Jorah.
Yeah.
They're sailing away.
So we see.
Do you think they passed by Gendry? Or do you think they waved it? Hey, dog. How's it going?
I would love to be able to watch this a second time and just see in the last like 4 seasons just Gendry in the background of a bunch of scenes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So those guys
Excuse me,
are
pardon me. That was Gendry.
they're sailing and they're trying to take the fast way, and so they're going to go past Valyria. And before we get there, Tyrion has this monologue about it that makes it just sound so amazing. And I encourage you to look up on the Wiki of Fire and Ice. It doesn't spoil anything. Like the Doom, which is what took out Valyria, which was like by far just the biggest, most powerful city, and that's why the Targaryens left and everything. And it actually, in events, only happened a few centuries ago, maybe 4 or 5 centuries ago, which relatively seems close when we hear about like the wall being built 10,000 years ago or whatever. But then we get to see the ruins of it and the smoke, and Drogon flies over. I remember when that came out, I was wondering if it was Drogon. I was like, maybe there's other dragons still in Valyria, but someone does say it's Drogon. But it is like that beautiful, smoky, quiet moment. It just gives me more appreciation for the depth of this world.
Yeah, it's cool. It's really cool. And then it gets real scary. That's the other cool thing. Everything beautiful in this world is extremely dangerous.
It's like a genuinely horrific moment when they start getting attacked.
Yeah.
Well, it's a really cool transition because you went right from that like awe-inspiring moment of Tyrion seeing a dragon for the first time, and it's like it's very quick. It's cutting to his reaction, and then in the background you see movement, and then this person just fall off the bridge, and you're like, oh, okay,
done.
now for something new.
That's a Dark Souls moment for sure.
That resembles me playing Dark Souls.
Yeah. Except for I'm usually the guy falling off
Yeah,
of
that's what I'm
something. Yeah. But yeah, and then that sequence is really cool and intense. And we have another moment of like Tyrion being in a situation where he's a prisoner and just be like, please set me free. I can help. Please set me free.
And when that
timing.
episode ends, don't you think that Tyrion could be dead?
They try. It's like they try and like make you think
You
that.
just wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. It's like they try to make you think the episode's ending. They go to a black.
Yeah, it
string
goes for a
recording.
long
Oh,
moment.
you're
But
right.
then
right.
they're-
And then
you
they
see
come up on
Jorah.
that.
For sure.
And then they immediately get arrested. And then he
Jorah
talks himself out of into slavery, but the right slavery.
Yeah.
By convincing them that his cock is magical.
That was the best. Until we find a cock merchant.
Cock
was
merchant,
my
yes.
favorite line.
Oh my gosh.
Man, I
and
went to the
isn't
wrong
that guy,
field.
Is that the guy from
Sir Echo from
I forgot to look it
Lost?
up. Yeah, Echo. I could not remember his name.
Mr. Echo.
Mr.
I've
Echo.
seen it in something else too. I just can't think of what it is.
Yeah.
But
He's good.
Also,
I
at
like
the
him.
end of like when they're on the shore, Jorah's like, "You didn't get touched by them, right?" And Tyrion's like, "No, did you?" And he's like, "No." And then he reveals that he has some like grayscale on his arm.
Tyrion doesn't know.
Yeah,
Right.
Tyrion doesn't
So
know
it's
that he
just him looking at it.
Ugh, Jorah. Man. I'll say Jorah in these episodes, it gets real sad very quickly and never stops getting sadder.
He is maybe in the most painful depths of friend zone that there's ever been. He's got grayscale. He's already been screwed by his first wife and banished, and my guy's had a tough life.
He finds out his
And
dad
he finds
died
out his dad died. Yeah, I just
because
forgot.
of a mutiny. Like not
yeah.
even. Yeah,
Which I don't think a lot of people put those characters together.
I didn't.
But yeah, like Mormont, the leader of the Night's Watch, and yeah, sad way for when I think about it, I'm like, oh man, Mormont deserved better than that, and I wish that Jorah had more context. But man, he really is. He's taken a lot of hits.
Yeah.
Because, but he's good at fighting.
Yeah.
It's real good.
No, they get sold into slavery to fight in the pits for one of the masters who has been in the Game of Thrones before. He's
really?
He's one of the masters at Yunkai in the tents that meets with Daenerys.
Oh,
Wait,
Oh.
maybe I'm thinking differently. I might be thinking of a different
let's
episode.
pretend they're
that's in
connected.
the
'Cause I
future.
like
Okay.
it.
Never mind. But yeah, no, they get sold in the fighting, and man, Jorah is for some reason not fighting in the first round.
Yeah.
Him and Tyrion are left in the tunnels, but then he hears that Daenerys is out there, so he busts out and just starts messing people up.
But not killing them because she doesn't like watching those guys die.
Did he kill one of them?
He might have killed one, but I'm pretty sure he's
That
like just knocking most
Big
of them
one.
out.
He like.
There's a guy who
Killed
like
pretty.
he's swinging the chain and he throws something at him. He throws his sword like sideways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, is that the most efficient way to throw your sword at somebody? But then he picks up a shield and just bashes his face in.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the guy's alive. Because Danny is disgusted. This is a big. I think we underplayed this before, that she did not want the fighting pits, and she gives in as like this is part of your culture. It technically can be freedmen fighting. Like this is entertainment, but
Which
she
it
seems
isn't at
disgusted.
all. We like, like
Yeah.
it'll be free men. And everyone's winking like, yeah, they'll be free men.
Yeah,
I wanted to gamble on this fighting. I just tell you, like immediately, I was like, "Oh, I know who I'd bet on." Like they could do some fictional fighting pits, and I would be. It's like how they run fake horse races all the time for people to gamble on. I would be in on gambling on these fighting pits.
Man. Yeah, no, every time his daughters were I was like, but your grace, it's tradition. I'm like, if I hear the word tradition come out of your fucking mouth one more time, I'm going to strangle you.
I
The
like
fighting
so
pits.
when Tyrion realizes what's going on, he wants to get out, and he's chained up, and he's trying to break it, and then the guard, who's like just this big nothing,
More 2.0.
yeah, he just breaks it, and then he gives him the head nod. Very modern head nod.
That was such
Yes.
a bizarre thing because it was like he was left alone, and like I feel like we were supposed to feel like that was a big deal, and then like this imposing figure comes. He's like, is he gonna beat the shit out of Tyrion for some reason? Oh, he's just gonna let him go? Like, I don't understand. I really don't understand like the
I think
mechanics
he's supposed
of
to
that.
be another fighter, which is my guess.
Yeah, I
but
couldn't
wasn't
get
sure.
maybe. But he looked like he was wearing. I don't know. It was weird. I was like, well,
I
he has to
agree.
get out there, so
And then Tyrion
Someone's
talks
gotta
himself
let him
out of
up.
trouble once again.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like you were pretty excited to see these worlds collide. How did their actual interactions from here on, like how did that feel for you?
I mean, the last scene that we see where Tyrion and Daenerys are just talking alone,
Yeah.
I really liked. And I really like that she like stopped him from drinking at some point too. Like, there's some cool stuff. I'm excited to see those characters together, and I think that a character like Tyrion is absolutely what she needs to like take those next steps, which I'm finally excited to see those happen. You know, because
It's good that she sees his value.
yeah, and Tyrion is like, you know, you can still be a good ruler and make the tough decisions too. He's like, there's some things that you just have to accept you're gonna have to do, and then you'll just have to do the other stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I'm interested to see that, and I think that I think she might. I don't know. She might be optimistic enough to restore some of Tyrion's absolutely decimated faith in humanity. So I don't know. Well, I'm interested to see how that's.
I like the way that conversation went. Like talking about power dynamics, you can tell because he was like, "Are you going to kill me?" And then they kind of got a little bit more into Westeros and him killing his own family, and you can just tell he speaks on another level. And I wasn't sure how she'd actually react, and it was a positive for me that she embraces it.
Yeah.
Oh, she exiles Jorah. She's like, yeah.
A second time.
I couldn't tell if Tyrion was gonna like try and talk her into keeping him, which might have actually turned her off towards Tyrion too. But he's like, yeah, he can't be around for this.
Well, I feel like he can't know it's good because he's like physically distancing himself from Jorah when she starts asking his opinion on what to do with him.
Yeah.
She starts stepping closer to her and more away from him. Like,
yeah.
I am not connecting myself with him.
Right.
And so
he reads the room real quick. He's like, yeah, you pissed her off. So
yeah. So he does like probably the smart, best thing possible there, I think.
Yeah.
I do want to point out that I think it was the moment I realized that this season is where I feel like Emilia Clarke's acting has kind of come into its own. It's kind of stepped up a little bit of a notch. And I appreciate those moments. I feel like it's the same with Kit Harington as well. Both of them have reached a level with their characters that they're comfortable enough that it feels less forced and cringy. More so that, like, in season 1 and 2, it felt there were a lot more of those moments that disconnected me, whereas I'm not feeling those as much now.
I think also those characters are given much more nuanced things to do, and there's so much more depth to what's happening around them that I think that helps too. I think the writing just of those characters also has like really come.
And they're put in these difficult gray areas, and it kind of gives them the opportunity to play with those complexities.
Yeah.
Anything else with the Dany Tyrion friendship and kinship? That's not a good word for it. I don't know. Their union.
their union. No, I can't. I mean, I can't think of anything. That's kind of
Jorah does sell himself back into slavery.
Right,
Oh,
yeah.
I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah.
Just get to the real sad part.
like-
oh, gosh.
He's like, I'm gonna fight in the great fight so that she'll see me again. Like, she doesn't want to see you.
It's
dude.
like driving by
Told
your
you to
ex's
leave.
house on the way home from work every day, hoping that they're outside. Like,
Oh gosh, yeah, it hurts. Oh
Yeah.
gosh,
It's
yeah,
bad.
it's tough to watch. But also, he's gonna turn into a rock, so
Might as
I
well.
don't know.
he's gonna be the final. He'll become the Rock.
Oh, that would be so cool. What about season 8? Oh, it turns out Jorah was with Jack and Hagar the whole time, and he just turns into the Rock.
But then Jaqen is actually the Rock. The whole show
And there's
is
a
the
tie into the new Fast and Furious movie. Oh, it's
Yeah.
so cool.
We'll know when we see the promotional material of the week leading up that just says Fast and Furious presents Game of Thrones
season 8.
Yeah.
Presented by Bud Light. We're gonna have presents and then presented by. Staying out east, like a lot of east is like half our juice right now. Arya,
Thanks for that word again.
Arya's out here playing Two Truths and a Lie and selling some oysters, clams, and cuckles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
She hangs out with. Do we get introduced to the waif now? Do they call her the waif?
No.
Oh, I haven't heard her name.
Look,
Is that the girl?
That bitch is the waif. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I haven't
I
heard
don't
that.
think it matters that we're gonna call the bitch the waif.
Okay. Well, we can call her that.
Yeah.
What do you call her?
The bitch.
Okay. So she's trying to like. Well, she's not trying. She hates Arya. She doesn't think she should be there.
Yeah.
Jaqen's like trying to get Arya to the point like you got to forget yourself, and Arya gets rid of everything except for Needle, which might have even happened last.
That did
time.
happen last time. We
Yeah.
didn't
But
talk
she
about
hides
that,
it in
but
a rock, and she's trying to invent these characters and trying to learn to lie better. I actually think when the waif is leaving the room and she tells her like, "Oh, I was a little lady from Westeros too," I believed it all. I mean, I don't know if I fully believed it, but at the end when she's like, "Did you believe me?" I'm like, "Damn!" Like, just shows you like Arya wants to learn to be an assassin, but she does not quite want to actually embrace this faith or this lifestyle yet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I will say, visually, one of my favorite things I've seen in the show so far is that, like, the basement of the House of Black and White with all the pillars with the heads in them is
So many heads.
really rad.
All those faces.
That I think a whole section about this I really like, and it's once again it's more in detail in the books, it's a little more interesting, but it's kind of like she's earned. It's almost like levels in a video game. She's like, okay, you're sweeping the floors in the main room. Okay, we now got to open the door to the next room. You've earned your way to the next room, but there's another closed door behind that. You got to put in your time here. and then we'll reveal the next room for you.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a cool feel to that. And then it's revealed with that, and it's really rewarding because each room gets more interesting.
Yeah.
And especially that last one you just talked about is, it raised a whole bunch of questions. It's also very visually appealing, and she looks really interested. And Jack, and I don't like that it's him, but it's whatever.
I don't understand why you don't like that.
Yeah, it's a dumb thing. I understand, but it's just a personal dumb thing I have.
Wait, you don't like? Is this what we talked about last time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't like that. We're supposed to think it's Jack and Nagar. I think it's just a random other person.
It makes complete sense to me. I don't get it.
You're gonna hate the last season when it's everyone.
But anyway, he's like, you're not ready to become no one, but you're ready to become someone else.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like almost like that next room thing. And apparently then something else is a oyster sales
With
girl.
some very Star Warsy hair. That's how I would
Yeah.
like to describe
Yeah,
that.
she totally
Yeah.
does. Yeah, that's.
But she becomes this character, and he has her do this pattern and figure some things out, and then she's just selling oysters and making certain observances, and you don't really know where it's going, but you can kind of feel it boiling, and you at least feel her really start to embrace this different person. I'd be really interested to see, like, if I could rewatch that, because she looks very detective-y. She's, like, seeing what's going on. I wonder if she really changed some ways she was acting to really feel like a different person. I didn't notice it a ton, but you can see her starting to sink her teeth into it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. This is the stuff I want to see. You know what I mean? It's taken a while to get there, but
It just
Yeah, it's
this is stuff you might, and I'm glad they played it to some degree, and there was no full Karate Kid montage, but you can see like it took us 8 episodes to get here. I bet her screen time in this season is really low.
Yeah.
Like when I think about what came before this, there just was not much happening. But I like her going around Bravos and just starting to see those things titillate.
Yeah, she does get assigned at the end to her first assassination mission to poison that dude,
yeah.
the thin man.
The thin man.
And it's interesting because he already knows about it, and he just kind of sent her there, just almost as a kind of a test to see if like is she going to notice this kind of thing, which I thought was really interesting. And yeah, that's kind of where it ends. Is she's tasked with killing that dude.
So I feel like coming into the season, Ari was one of the things we're most excited for, and what you guys predicted would happen has happened. But Riley, has it been satisfying? Are you frustrated? Or are you just like, this is cool, but give me more? Where are you at with Arya?
I think I'm ready for more, because it was a really like slow burn her getting here, and so now that she's finally here, I'm like, okay, they need to just like go all in on it and let us see a lot more and kind of explain a little more about everything, because I feel like I still don't understand a lot about the many-faced god and like everything that's going on there. So I'm interested to see where they go with it from this point, where they've finally given us like some payoff for watching her clean floors and bodies all season.
We talked about this off mic a little bit, like coming into the season, a few things were not cliffhangers, but just set up for chaos and new environments. And we had Dorne coming in, and none of them really get exciting in the first 4 episodes. So it's nice in these ones to see some real progress happen, and then things do come to a head. There's, as usual, this season ends in a fantastic way, and we'll talk about. This is the first time we're in episode 8 instead of 9. We get a huge set piece, and we'll end with Hardhome, I think.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that cool with you guys?
Yeah.
But for now, let's go to Sansa and Ramsay, because they are essentially through these 4 episodes, they take up as much time as anyone, which we have not really. Normally, King's Landing, sometimes Jon, like that's where you're really getting, and then Danny will have a handful of episodes, but this, like, Winterfell is maybe our primary setting during a lot of these episodes, and we get to see a lot go down, and it sucks. So let's get it over with. Ramsay's with his mistress now, Miranda, and they are just. Miranda seems to be the person who hangs out by fire and watches person after person get burned and doesn't think she's going to get burned. And in this, he kind of has they're just hanging out naked, and he kind of puts her in her place, but at the same time tries to make her continue to feel value. And he just has this aggressive, and you can tell she finds it appealing, but the fear really starts to creep in, and that relationship is just a precursor to the monster that he is. And then we get to see Miranda and Sansa do some mean girl shit. What did you get? What are your general takeaways from Winterfell? And we can talk pre-wedding and then post-wedding.
It's the saddest. I don't like it. I mean, I think again, the stuff, seeing Reek more, I like, but also it just feels like every time something could change or something could go one way, he's just Reek at this point. It doesn't feel like that's going to change. And like, I feel like they've presented so many things like, oh, maybe he's still in there. Just kidding. He's Reek all the way. And it feels like, I don't know. I don't like it. I just don't like watching it. Less Ramsey would be my note for this entire show. I hate that asshole.
Do you think he's a hindrance to the storytelling? Do you really hate that there's so much presence because he's just this growing and mutilated person, or do you just like hate it?
There's so much time spent on him in these episodes where there's other stuff I want to see. Like I want to see more Arya stuff. I honestly would take more King's Landing stuff over this because I think there's more stuff they can do with the Sparrows that's interesting. Even though they go some real cool places already with all that stuff, I think in these episodes. But there's just so much else that I think is more interesting. And like, he's a character, him and his dad are presented in ways that they have no redeeming qualities. There was a moment, I can't remember if it was last season or maybe season 3. I can't remember, but like, there are moments when I was like, oh, maybe we're going to get to the misunderstood side of Ramsay Bolton and there will be like this glimmer of something, but there's just nothing there. And also we just have to watch Sansa. I hate it. We just, every time there's any hope for Sansa, it's just immediately squashed. I don't know. It feels so oppressive, I guess. All this stuff at Winterfell feels so oppressive and gross, and
that's the same position she was in King's Landing.
Yeah.
That she was, borderline worried about being abused and raped, and that ends up what happens. And you can see her harden. Like, first of all, she's dressed like freaking Maleficent. I mean, she's a lady again, and she just is all decked out, and she has to get married during a very creepy wedding ceremony. It reminded me of the very cult-like Order of the Arrow Boy Scout thing that they do randomly. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that.
That sounds really familiar.
But there's like a cult within Boy Scouts called the Order of the Arrow, and you do some very cultural appropriative Native American ceremonies to get inducted. Oh, and you don't eat for 24 hours while you're doing a camping trip of silence. You don't speak or eat for 24 hours. I joined this. I'm sorry.
What? But
they stayed in a circle like that with fire going to it, and I was like, this is just like that. I did do it.
Oh, wow.
What the hell?
So anyway... Creepy.
And now girls
stuff.
Can do it too.
Yay! Inclusivity. I know. Like, do you guys really want to be part of this? Anyway, so Sansa, you see her. She rebels a couple times. She says some very sneakily rude things, and I'm like, why are you digging yourself into a deeper hole? We see how bruised up she is, and I was like, isn't that problematic? But she's normally in massive furs. Like, no one can see those bruises. She just follows Miranda down the dog pen when she first gets introduced back to Reek.
Yeah.
But I'm like, why are you just following this random chick who you know is in love with your betrothed? Like, she's not necessarily playing the smartest game, but I don't know how many options she has. But she kind of just has this bittered hardness, and then you see the vulnerability as she gets... she just continually gets crushed by the situation.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing that sucks about being Sansa is that when you're finally ready to play the game at a certain level, everyone has moved on to a much grosser game, and you are just going to be abused.
Well, and she gets a little bit of hope. She has an old lady, because a lot of the people in Winterfell are still who are there with her family, and she's like, put a candle in this window, you still have friends in the north. And it turns out Ramsay knew what was going on because Theon Reek is a little bitch.
I hate him more than I've ever hated anyone in my life.
And what's interesting is during their wedding night scene where she's being raped, we dwell on his face, which I think is such a choice. And while a lot of people are like, hey, this didn't need to be in there at all, I thought the way that they handled it was excruciating. And this is what a lot of people hate about season 5.
Well, I think here's my qualm with it so far, and hearing that people hate that makes me think I also hate it, because I thought it was handled in that way to put a glimmer of hope as far as there being a piece of Theon still there, and then we learn very quickly that it isn't, and so I don't know. That scene is really rough. I don't know. I just wish there was any amount of hope there, and I just don't have any.
I guess at the end of it, she does, because Reek's been bringing her meals, and she was finally talking to him, and she was like, you killed like all these people, you abandoned Rob, you killed my brothers, and he's like, and he like refers them as those boys. And she was like, you can't even call them like their names, and then she finds out that they're still alive kind of through that, which is interesting because she just thinks that her whole family's dead, essentially.
And she keeps fighting.
I just don't know what that piece of knowledge does for her in her situation.
And Reek will probably go tell.
I've held my silence long enough. I need to rant and yell here.
Oh my! All right.
This is the biggest misstep in the show. This is where the writing gets completely thrown out the window for me. I think that Sansa's character has been completely worthless this whole show, but it was playing the long game. I always thought it was. We're getting to this point now, and things started to get interesting, started going the direction they needed to go. Littlefinger's like trying to tell her, like, you need to start playing the game. Her greatest moment in the entire show, and I'm gonna spoil it through the whole series.
Wait, no.
Is right now.
No.
Is already happened. It's already happened.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna spoil something.
No. I'm not gonna.
Like, shut up.
No. The greatest moment she has in this whole show is the lie she tells at the Eyrie, is when she sticks up for Littlefinger. That's the biggest thing she does, because we take her, we start to think, oh, she's going to start playing the game, she's going to start manipulating people. Down in the crypt, Littlefinger's like, take this boy Ramsay, wrap him around your finger, making her like, yes, this is what I want to see. I was excited these first 4 episodes, we were going to get to see that Sansa. And what happens? We completely reverse her storyline. We take her back, we make her a sexual slave to Ramsay, and she can't fight back, she's not doing anything. She literally just becomes another cowering girl and the prisoner she was at King's Landing again. And she doesn't do anything.
What can she do? No, I disagree, because I think she's put in this position. She continues to be pissed. She continues to fight back. Like I said, post-rape, she's still like talking shit, going back, fighting to go back to Theon and say, remember who you are, help me out. She's still looking for hope from the old lady. Like now, we see that Brienne is still just waiting outside the gates, and we have the rug of hope pulled out from under us a couple times. Like I get
too
that.
many times.
I
think it's manipulative.
Well, tell me this.
It is manipulative.
Tell me this.
Absolutely.
It's in a bad way.
Like shitty things like that. I don't know.
But
I just think in this
like
fantasy
at some
world,
point, it crosses over into
gratuitous
bad storytelling.
Okay,
you know what I mean.
Tell me,
Like
would it be
that's
better to
biggest
have her be a stronger game player, to actually have what Littlefinger said, to have more of a back and forth between her, more political things, less physical violence going on between her and the Boltons, or is this better to have her be a sex slave?
I do think it's a misstep, but I don't think it's a disaster like you're referring to. It pays off, but maybe they go too far with it for what the payoff ends up being. But like I don't know. I just think what we've seen of how disgusting and horrendous this world is, this did not seem out of the realm of possibility or a gratuitous in it. Like, of course, you like any abuse like that, any rape, if you're going to depict it anyway, it needs to be done so carefully. And even if it exists in the world, it's like, does it need to be shown? Do we need to see her hope and her internally wrecked over and over again? They could have gone too far with it, but I did not think it was this like disastrous thing that took us out of it. Like, it fit the world for me.
For me, the rape
thing.
isn't the part that goes too far.
Yeah,
it's the fact that she's just now locked in a room. It's not even so much the writing of Sansa's characters. The situation they wrote her in is bad writing, and it doesn't let her character go anywhere. She is now... Her being locked in that room is her character actually, the writing of her character being confined, and she's just basically bruised, cowering in a corner.
I will say, like, not knowing where this goes and being 8 episodes into this season, I'm exhausted with her stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to care. I did for like an episode, and now I just feel like every time I see her, I don't have any hope with Sansa, and that's part of it, but it also it's tiring. And like as an audience for that, I don't really, it's hard for me to care about that stuff as much anymore because I just feel like I'm going to be betrayed again. You know what I mean?
Maybe I just didn't hit that wall because in storytelling, let's say in episode 8, at the end of episode 8, whatever happens and she dies, I'm like, yeah, then what was the point of her storyline the entire time? For me, there's always like a when's this tide going to turn? And I guess I just did not hit the point of being so sick of her getting beat back down and be isolated that I never felt like the tide was going to turn. Like all these little things that are happening, I feel like there's character progression. Like she is being cornered and she is being punched back down, but I also see her I see her transforming, and it's making me hate Littlefinger and Ramsay, and it is putting a Stark again in just a position where if she can turn the tide, it's fire, and it's also I don't think can, and I want to be really delicate with the way I put this, and I don't refer to it all as because of the sexual violence, but just straight the emotional and mental abuse. She is never going to be the same Sansa. She's not necessarily going to always move forward broken, but she's not going to ever be innocent again. She is going to be a different and more, I would think, negative and skeptical character because of this. But I think characters in world like this get treated like that and get formed like that. We just don't like seeing it out loud. Like I feel like we've already heard stories and abuses where this is a part of this, and seeing it to someone that not even that we were not in love with her as a character. She does not have these great moments where you're like really into Sansa.
But you root for a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the thing is like my qualms with Sansa have never been personal. It's not that I hate Sansa Stark.
But I'm just saying she's never had a fun storyline or a storyline where you can get as invested in her.
And now it's like she's had a lot of screen time. There's been a lot of time dedicated to this arc, and it feels brutal in a way that I don't know. It doesn't necessarily. The pros don't necessarily outweigh the cons for me. Like, yeah, I hate Littlefinger more than ever. And we'll get most of why I hate Littlefinger too is because of his scene with Cersei later, where he basically just sells out everything. I hate Ramsay Bolton, but I've always hated Ramsay Bolton. And you know what I mean? So for me, like, I feel like it's almost not as much a storytelling. It's almost the amount of time that is dedicated to it without any glimmer or any path out yet. Like I just
except the ones that get crushed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Except for the ones that happen and then
I get it. And you guys are on the side of popular opinion, and I don't want to overly defend it. I don't think I guess I was pushed beyond the bounds of being frustrated by the storytelling like you guys were. But you're right. A lot of people feel the way you guys do.
And I'm not like incredibly like you were saying. I don't think that the things that are happening are out of the realm of possibility. I just, as someone who's watching it, for me, it didn't work. You know what I mean?
It would have been effective if they
didn't work.
You're like, okay, some people get shit upon their entire lives and go through horrendous things, and that sucks. But point was made. Point has been over abused.
Yeah. Okay. I think it could be handled better.
Okay. I think too what makes it especially bad going forward. Once again, I don't want to spoil too much, but like, I don't know, Sansa's storyline. We spent a lot of screen time on Sansa this series, and it's all just things happening to her. And I don't think she's ever, and nor does she ever really take the reins and become more as a character. It's still just shit happening to her.
I don't know. I disagree with that going forward. But to this point, there's a lot to be made of that. I mean, I think we'll revisit this discussion once we see where Sansa goes, if she survives. Another couple things, let's just run through. Ramsay finds out he's not the only heir anymore. They're going to have a baby, and they think it's going to be a son. He also makes a fat joke about Walda because he's like, "How can you tell that she's pregnant?" Which is a little bit horrendous, and like, we can't pretend it's not a little bit funny because it is. And we also find out that Ramsay is a product of a woman who was raped under her dead husband's hanging body. What a family story there, Roose. I think we're finding out Roose and Ramsay have a little bit more in common than we thought. Like, he's also there are different. I think this is a Bolton thing, but it's a couple places where a ruling lord is if a new woman is getting married, or the ruling lord of the area just has first dibs to sleep with her before her husband. and that is just some part of someplace in Westeros, and so it's like, yeah, it's pretty shitty.
They cover that on The Office. If you,
They cover that on The
Oh,
Office.
do they?
yeah,
Oh, I
because
don't even
Michael
know.
talks about sleeping with Phyllis before she gets married.
That's
That's the only reason I know what that is.
Makes sense.
No, that's also a moment I didn't like either. It was Roose Bolton's kind of story about that, because I don't know. I feel like at this point it's like, oh, so the Boltons are just the disgusting mustache twirling villain. Like there's no, at that point, Roose still had like levels of nuance to him. I felt like, and at that point he kind of lost it for me.
Well, and that's to me that's why someone like Cersei Lannister still works, is because there's this depth and like this history and like this nuance to that feels like, okay, I kind of get it. The Boltons, I don't fucking get anything. Like, you guys are the worst. You're the worst. But yeah,
I think one-dimensional villains are not, and of course they're not they're not the primary villain, but they through a lot of the season have some serious screen time to be so. I don't think that they are the worst thing in fiction, but they cannot be your focus, and I think that they are realistic. Like, not every human has enough complexity to show.
right.
Well, I feel like we get that with Ramsay though. I feel like, and that's what I feel like that's a misstep for me, is because I feel like having Roose having a little more layers to him and Ramsay just being kind of almost a Joffrey of just like this psycho. I like that battling against each other more. I like that contrast more, whereas we're just painting in shades of black and gray at this point. And I don't know, that doesn't make a super interesting picture.
Any other thoughts on Winterfell?
Nope.
Okay. We're
Just
glad
like-
that's over.
Just like they've spent too much time on it in the show, we
We
have
have
spent
spent
too much time on it on this episode.
This season we definitely are getting a lower dose of King's Landing, and this is the least amount of time we've spent there by far. But
Yeah. As King's Landing is going into like the coolest places of like Victorian horror and dystopian like theocracy, man, it's cool. It's getting like sci-fi-ish down there in a way. But yeah.
so the big things we'll go through, I think Olenna and Baelish are back, and the Sparrows are just getting more and more power.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part of what happens in King's Landing?
Oh man, I love the I love Loris's trial because it's just a freaking gut punch of a scene where everything's flipped, and it's maybe only trumped by right after that when Cersei is also thrown in prison. Oh man,
Do you feel bad for Cersei? Because when she's like sucking water off the ground, I'm like, on one hand, I don't love these fanatics, but on the other hand, you kind of deserve this.
yeah. I mean, but I also, when she's like, I will be the last thing you see before you die, I was like, I can't wait to see that. Like, I'm excited for that
great.
too. You know what I mean? Like, everything about it for me is just, oh, this is really good.
And it just like was a huge payoff for me because she had these like crazy religious like radicals, and she's like, oh, I'm untouchable, but like she has some of the worst stuff like going on with her, and like her cousin that she was doing a lot of that stuff with is one of those radicals. So I don't know why she didn't think that would come back around to bite her. Like,
when he's clearly been the person who's letting all this information out, like, you don't. And when the king can't tell someone to free the queen, somehow she then thought she was above that.
yeah.
I feel bad for Tom, and he's like, this is
Now
the
he's
first time we
alone.
see him explode. He's like, I can't do anything about it, and it upsets me. And I don't think they demonstrate this well, but the idea is that you can't beat up on the faith because they love the poor people, and since he's feeding the poor, people are now seeing his extremists as acceptable, and that's why you can't just have the City Watch just go like, hey, go bust those dudes down, and I'm gonna go get my wife out because I want to. And that's the thing is, when they have that meeting on the steps, when Joffrey first tries to go get Marjorie free, I'm just like, fight, just go for it. And you realize that they can't, and then they're doing things in the streets, and the City Watch just turns their back. I'm just like, shit, we're on another level. Like, there's King's Landing is no longer under control.
Yeah. Well, and the Septim is super smart too, because he does the same thing to Cersei that he did to Marjorie, like in the trial, when he's like, oh yeah, so are those accommodations for that woman, are they good enough? And Cersei's like, yeah, they're more than good enough. He's like, good, you get the same. Like,
He has some monologues, and sometimes, honestly, I drift a little during them, but if you listen to him, he gives history, which is interesting, and he just says so much, and it is like the most conniving, and like props to that actor, because you don't feel it, but man, he's telling you everything you need to know.
he's the first character we've seen maybe in this show that is so soft spoken and so self assured in everything that we see him in, and like it's a new form of power. I feel like in the show that we really haven't seen up to this point.
That's my favorite scene, probably in the season so far, is his little verbal joust with Olenna. In the Seven of Baelor.
Olenna comes back,
and she's who is so known for just burying people in those fights.
Well, we just think of like her and Tywin, where they're both just like, this is whatever. We'll figure it out. Like once they realize, and I feel like that's how she's gotten through life. It's like that, and then he's like, yeah, you got nothing I want.
Well, yeah, and
lady.
he's just like, it must be like really strange for you to not have like a hidden motive in every person you meet. Like,
yeah,
and that's the moment where it's like, this is a character that we've not seen before, a type of character we've not seen before, and is gonna really shake things up because no one knows how to handle that.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love it.
I love how the tables have turned. Like Cersei goes in to see Marjorie and trolls her, and I love that Marjorie's just like, you're a bitch and I hate you. Like, oh, about time.
Yeah.
And then Cersei all of a sudden gets trashed. Confess.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's so nice.
I wonder if people who went to Catholic school are like triggered by those scenes of like, oh man, I can't even imagine.
I love that everyone right now in King's Landing is in a corner, because I think the other question is, okay, how do you keep playing the game at this point?
Yeah.
Like dirty Marjorie, just like nothing she can do right now.
Yeah.
She's kind of hot. I'm kind of into the whole just chilling in rags in her own shit. Her and her grandma, man, there's just something.
Yeah.
All right.
More confident with Ramsay, I think, than we knew before I started recording this.
We should talk about Baelish and what he does come back to King's Landing to do, though, a little bit.
Ugh.
Yeah, that this is the stuff that makes me hate him so much more, and we kind of touched on this last time of like there's like this very clear difference between Varys and Littlefinger now, which we kind of are always, there was always a difference, but like Varys is this very like idealistic, we've found, like he's trying to bring this good into the world by doing some shady shit so that other people don't have to, which is really great. Littlefinger's just trying to get his always. And he basically goes to Cersei and talks to her and kind of lets her know everything that's going on up north that he also is orchestrating. He meets with Olenna again. He runs into Lancel. Like,
I think there's an argument to be made. He's winning right now. I think that he's made some genius moves, and with disarray everywhere, like he has his hands in certain places where everything can go his way.
That's true.
Like
yeah.
He's done some genius things.
His fingerprints are on
his little fingerprints.
His little fingerprints are on, I mean, not only some of the biggest things that have happened within the last, couple seasons, but going forward, it's hard to imagine that the things that he's done don't play hugely into the next big things that happen. So yeah, I agree. I think that he, for sure, yeah, he's winning right now, it feels like. So it's crazy. I mean, it's also too, he's stretched very thin.
Yeah.
And so I could see that crumbling very easily as well in the near future.
That's what I thought when I was watching it. I'm like, especially the whole thing between like the Boltons and the Lannisters, it's like, how are you getting out of
tenuous.
this?
Yeah.
Like, in the end, shit's gonna have to happen. Like,
yeah.
Let's go. Anything else for anywhere until we go north?
I'm trying to think. Other Kings. That's all the King's Landing stuff, really. It's just
everyone's in prison except for Tommen, who's just chilling in his room. Like, what's going on?
He's
playing
unsupervised.
GameCube.
He's not getting laid. He can't find his cat.
Imagine it like Home Alone. He's just like,
Yeah.
what do I do?
Do we want to go south of Dorne first, or do we want to go up?
Oh, I forgot about Dorne.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get to hang out with Marcella.
You can be forgiven for that.
There's some poison.
I've got a major question about stuff that happens in Dorne, and it has to do with those snakes.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Well, it's towards the end. Basically, I'll just run down. Basically, Bronn and Jaime finally show up. They find Marcella. They're about to take her, and then the snakes show up. They fight. The guards come
And we're like, we're arresting all of you.
all of them, yeah. And then in the cells, like, Bronn is right across the way from the
sand
snakes or
snakes.
whatever. Sand snakes, thank you. And it's revealed that he's been poisoned.
Well, he gets cut during the fight.
Yeah, right.
Very
Yeah.
clear, yeah.
He gets cut. He's been poisoned. There's this extremely sensual, weird scene with her, like,
She starts taking her clothes off.
yeah, and then he starts to get really sick because of this poison.
It's accelerated.
Right? No, that's not the
Right,
thing that
okay.
I'm like weirded out by. And then she just gives him the
Yeah.
antidote.
Yeah.
Why?
Yep.
That was
Why
weird.
did she do it?
I don't know.
Is she really attracted to him? Is he that hot? Like, that's
like
the
an
only
old
thing I think
dude.
about. I was like, okay, this is the new relationship? I don't know. I was so weird. I was like, why did she do that? I thought I was going to watch my friend Bronn die.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
I didn't want him to die, but I also am very confused. And it's not, he doesn't even have to beg. Like, she kind of makes him say, who's the most beautiful girl in the world, but she gives it to him super easily.
yeah.
It's just a super,
I thought she was going to be like,
childish
here's the
thing.
antidote, and then just be like,
Mhm.
like crush it on the ground or something.
I'm glad
And
he's
I was
not
like,
dead.
no, I am also, but it was such a weird
It was.
thing.
It was random as
It was
hell,
a
yeah.
weird. It had a lot of build up
Mhm.
and a lot of stuff, and then it was just fine. I don't know, cool.
Yeah.
It was just interesting. I'm glad I'm not the. I'm kind of glad there isn't an explanation for it because it would have meant that I missed out on something huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a weird. That was a bizarre thing.
I think otherwise we find out Marcella and this Prince of Dorne actually kind of like each other.
Tristian? Is
They're
that
in
like a
love.
weird
Oh.
Tristane?
Tristane and
Yeah.
he's old. Yeah, it's she's
Tristane and his soul. Is that
yeah, you know the knockoff of Romeo and Julio. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, like, does anything really happen?
No,
It's
but I
pretty.
do want to comment
I like
that
the water
that fight scene is the worst fight scene in Game of Thrones.
It's so bad.
great,
It's
yeah.
not choreographed well. It's very choppy. So much cutting, and also I think a lot of crossing the line too, cinematography wise. That threw me off. I was like, "Where?" Who? And they're both
yeah.
dressed the same, so I'm like, "Who's fighting who?"
Yeah, it's disorienting. It felt, yeah. I
Is that the
totally
one where
get
he
that.
stops the sword with his hand, or was that earlier?
No, that one's
No,
earlier.
Because I do like that.
That
one's
one's cool.
a good one.
That one's like so like Errol Flynn 30s swashbuckler style fight. We didn't talk about that last time. I loved that fight.
See,
I thought it was
it was
so
good.
The
good.
reason why that works for me, though, well, I'm going to talk about two specific instances in both those fights that are related of Jaime and how he can't fight anymore.
Yeah.
That was presented well in the first fight,
Yeah.
and how he got out of that just out of sheer luck.
Yeah.
Oberyn Martell is presented as the most badass of the three, I feel like. She's going one-on-one with a man fighting with his offhand, and they're going toe-to-toe.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel like that's an inconsistency. Like, I feel like either she sucks or this was just presented badly. Like, it's not. It took me out of it. And the fact that he held his own against that is bullshit.
He's just learning and growing. Not a great fight. Not
Just
a great fight.
growing.
And then they're all in prison, and then he gets healed from his accelerated boner poison. Am I wrong?
That's why I like it so much.
But Marcella also, we should say, is like resistant to going home, and they just seem to be living this little fairy tale, which is nice. But a lot of Dornish people want her dead because of what she represents. But man, she hasn't really done anything. I mean,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She
Spends a lot of time in the gardens.
kind of reminds me of Sansa going to King's Landing.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot going on that they just don't understand because this is what they were brought up to understand is what their lives would be.
I mean,
you know?
she's
And,
got
like,
even cozier though, because it seems like Oberyn's brother, who's ruling things, like they're down. Like
right.
she's just been treated well. They're like, you're going to be an important part of an alliance, and the Sand Snakes, you know, that's not important to them.
Yeah. I mean, the leadership in Dorne at this point feels pretty chill. Like they're just, you know. we're far away from everything, so whatever's going on.
It doesn't feel like there was drama there until the King's Landing drama
Right.
got brought to them.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, but I kind of get it. Like, why start a war when? I mean, it's not like you don't want to start a war as revenge for one man. But guess what? That has actually started a lot of wars in Westeros.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's like, yeah, totally on Duran's side, because it's like he offered to be in the single tricon trying to get revenge, and he was an idiot.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to start a war for that.
He's got gout really bad, and I'm kind of imagining an alternate version of The Favorite, where Queen Anne has gout, and they're just constantly trying to help her. Anyway, that only makes sense if you've seen The Favorite, but it's fine. Any closing thoughts on Dorne?
No.
All right, let's go north of the wall. Funnily enough, I took a good few notes, but none are actually on the Battle of Hardhome, so let's talk about how we get there real quick. Jon gets a nice talk from Maester Aemon, who's like, you got to find the strength to do what you must. Kill the boy, Jon Snow. Winter is almost upon us. Kill the boy and let the man be born. And as we've seen Jon become more and more of a leader, he makes a huge choice here to go north with the wildlings, and his idea is to let them have the gift and let them all survive, because he doesn't want them to turn into the army of the dead, and he wants their help against the army of the dead, but this kind of pisses everyone around him off. So what do you guys think? How do you think Jon does with the politics that are going on after barely getting elected and knowing that a lot of people hate him? How do you think he's doing so far?
I think he's pretty good, man. He extended the olive branch to Alistair Thorne, made him first ranger, and like, also he knows what needs to be done. Yeah. That scene with Tormund too. Okay, Tormund is cool. I like that guy. Yeah, he's the new Bronn.
Tormund, Bronn, and Jorah, like, you think these just really gruff old warriors who randomly do a great job with whoever they're with, making it super entertaining.
Yeah. So I mean, that scene with him, and also I think I just love buddy comedies so much, like buddy movies, like stuff like that. That anytime two cool people get paired up, I'm so stoked. But like when Tormund's like, "Yeah, I'll go do it, but you're coming with me," like, yeah, road trip, yeah. So they're just cool, and I think like we kind of saw this. You kind of start to see this side of Tormund when you see him in relation to like the Thenns, where it's like, oh yeah, no, he's still this. He's like that. What most of the wildlings are, which is like they're human beings who are trying to survive, and he has done some messed up things, but there's this core to him that is very, actually like tender and open to that normal human connection stuff, and so like. Just seeing him like accepting that idea and like a gift of like respect from Jon Snow, and like this mutual like just kind of agreeing to be like, listen, this is in our best interest, and like I respect you as a person. Yeah. Like that is a cool relationship to see.
And it is so well written to demonstrate the idea that they are both willing to accept that they both tell the other one something that convinces them, because while he does he comes from a culture where there's so much hate for anyone south of the wall. I'm not saying what they don't do is horrible, but pillaging them, it's not a bad thing because they are so evil. And if that's ingrained in you from the day that you're born, like, it's kind of understandable. And even if some of it is wrong, even if they don't understand, like, oh, these are, like, they almost dehumanize the people south of the wall. And I think them being able to humanize each other, while that word's not going to get to all of their comrades, as we'll see, it is really well done to get that developed. Maester Aemon dies of natural causes, and this is a joke meme online, but like that's a pretty freaking great achievement in Westeros. Sad to see him go. He gives us one more inspirational talk. And then
I didn't write it down. I should have. What's his last words? I remember it being like really like.
I dreamt I was old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I don't that like.
Yeah, he's
was so
hallucinating.
beautiful and great.
He talks to like little Sam like he's his brother.
Yeah.
And stuff. Like it's super cool.
That like made me really emotional when I was watching it. I really liked that.
And I believe isn't his little brother Egg from Duncan and Egg? Okay, anyway, there's a spin-off of short stories by George R. R. Martin called Duncan and Egg, and I'm pretty sure his little brother is the egg in that, and he eventually becomes king. But anyway, he's got a really interesting history, and he's hallucinating, and it's sad to see him go, but like, what a cool character.
Yeah.
And that actor, man, he's old.
Yeah, he's great.
And then before we go up to Hardhome, which is a community on the sea way north on the east side of Westeros.
The most illustrious subdivision north of the wall. Hardhome.
First of all, Gilly's my favorite line before we get to the interesting stuff. She says, "I'm sorry, I don't know things." Because Sam's just like rattling off all this history and crap, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm like all of this is so far over my head, and I just want to like, me too, Gilly."
Yeah,
me
same.
too.
we forgot to mention they bang. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we were getting there. Good for Sam. Good for that guy.
I will say too, Sam is another character that like between last season and this season, I've really liked his transformation into what he is now. And because he's still Sam, he sucks at fighting.
Yeah, he gets the crap kicked out of him. Ghost saves his butt.
Yeah, but he like has a reason to live.
Yeah,
that he didn't have at the bebeginning of the show. You know what I mean?
Their
like,
love and the idea that like I don't want to die because I don't want to be without you. Like it's the same thing as like Missandei and Grey Worm, and she gets on top, does all the work. He initiates a little bit more of what I remember. Like she's treating him. He's like, "Don't go." And she was like, "I'm just going to get some water." And he's like, "Nah." And then she says the same thing that Tommen says. Tommen's like, "Did I hurt you?" And she says to Sam afterwards, "Did I hurt you?"
I wanted Sam to be like, a little bit. Like, that's how I expected that to play out in my mind.
Oh.
It's like, yeah, yeah, a little bit.
He just seems so confused at what's happening to his penis. Huh? Huh? He kind of sound like an anime character.
Nani?
Okay. Any other thoughts on their consummation?
No.
No.
But
Woohoo!
man,
Good for Sam.
It's the first time she's done it with anyone other than her dad. It's just like all I could think about that whole time. I was like, man, that's gotta be a horrifying experience.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, too, this isn't addressed, but I did think of it. That's a big step for her in light of that too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, they've been together not together, but they've been like, she's found this insane level of trust and genuineness with Sam.
Yeah.
But you're right. That is huge.
It's
when
good
you
to
come
see
from
like a repaired, like, that she is able to do that. You know what I mean? That was like,
we haven't touched on Stannis at all.
Oh yeah.
No.
And I think it was in the previous one. No, it was in the set where he actually leaves.
Yeah.
The wall.
He's like, it's time to go get Winterfell.
Yeah, and the things aren't going well.
Yeah, they're gonna be in trouble because that huge storm is there, and
Winter has come.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of mercenaries who probably don't know how to fight in the snow. It's kind of implied, basically.
They're not Northmen.
So at one point, like 500 of them run away.
Oh, okay.
They leave.
And then Ramsay and Roose talk about how they've got provisions for 6 months. Like they're not going to be able to penetrate Winterfell. Like seems pretty dour. And Melisandre is now asking for a sacrifice to help. To help the army get through and win that.
Yeah. Shireen has King's blood, and this is the first time Stannis is just like kind of straight up is just like get out. Yeah. He's never.
He does say, "What about leeches? Can we leech her first?"
You
can do that thing you did with Gendry.
That's true.
Yeah, but I don't think we've ever seen him dismiss her from a scene ever, and that was the first time.
Yeah.
So dire straits there for Stannis, who finally gets out of there, but man, it looks miserable.
Yeah. Well, and Ramsay also says to Roose, "Hey, give me 20 dudes.
I'm gonna go do it.
Do some stuff." So
go wreck them.
See what happens. But
hope something bad happens to Ramsay.
Hopefully Beric Dondarrion shows up. Is he ever coming back to see?
He'll melt the snow with his fire sword.
I just imagine them just smoking a bunch of weed now. That's honestly, Beric Dondarrion is just like wandering around and like every few months,
weed shipment.
Yeah, every few months he just finds a big group of people, places a huge bet, and he kills himself and comes back to life, and that's how they survive. He just has a bunch of money from that, and they smoke a bunch of weed and hang out.
And then there's a zombie horror movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I would say, like, kind of comes out of nowhere for this season. A season
It
that's
does.
felt very slow and like
Yeah.
deliberate in its pacing. All of a sudden, it's just like, holy shit!
I was like,
And
whoa.
I don't think there's a ton of exposition to be like, hey, all these wildlings are at Hardhome. We need to go get them to help them fight with us. We need to go save everyone. Like, this is a dangerous northern. Like, it's not really laid out. So he just shows up, and you're kind of like, okay, I see the political stuff. He's with a Then and a random German lady, and he's trying to work out to get them to come with them, and then boom, goes the dynamite.
Yeah.
I should say about that German lady. Fun fact: she plays a prominent role before dying in this episode. That same week that this episode came out, Pitch Perfect 2 came out, and she is one of the singers in the German group in Pitch Perfect 2
really?
are the villains. So all of a sudden, this lady gets 2 massive pop culture showings in America
weird.
in 1 week, and since then she hasn't done anything. But
amazing.
good week for her.
Yeah.
And then we have another giant just chilling in the corner.
Yeah.
But this is, again, the fact that Tormund and Jon have such respect for each other and that he stands up for him. He kills Rattleshirt. Tormund kills Rattleshirt because everyone is naturally questioning what Jon is doing there and stuff.
Oh gosh, that was awesome. I kind of forgot about it until you mentioned it, but yeah. Tormund's cool, man.
He's
such a good...
Jon,
the biggest
great.
Jon
badass.
isn't smart in this scene. The way he words things and tells people things is like, how can I paint myself in the worst light to these people?
Yeah, I was like,
it's like, how did Mance rated I shot him with an arrow.
Yeah,
and then Tormund has to be like, well,
Like,
he was mercy.
listen.
yeah, I wouldn't peg Tormund as the guy who you'd want to like expound upon this stuff, but yeah, and I do think that that's kind of reflected into when they finally agree. Like they're like, I'll never trust this guy, but if you vouch for him, cool. Like we trust you.
They
really
clearly saved the whole budget from this season because we barely get Direwolf. A lot of things look really crappy, and they're like, but we're going to there's going to be one awesome set piece. It looks really good.
Yeah.
And in direct contrast to the way that last fight scene looks, this one is another one of those like it's kind of like the Battle on the Wall from last season. Like it's so good, and there's like some of those sweeping shots, some of those tracking shots. Specifically the one where Jon is like running over to the hut where the dragon glass is and stuff.
Oh, and then the giant just explodes out the side. That was such a cool
This is
scene.
so
really
cool.
good. Really good.
But yeah, man, and then he fights that White Walker.
Yep.
And we discover that Valerian steel can kill White Walkers.
Because he's trying to go get the dragon glass, and then he ends up getting his butt kicked. Like, it felt like the White Walker could have killed him a couple times, but eventually he gets his sword back, and he blocks a couple things and is just able to wipe him out. And more importantly, the leader of the White Walkers, who there's a bunch of them just sitting on a hill looking badass.
Yeah, that's a cool,
Yeah.
cool shot too.
Sees this happen as well. And yet, just the sheer amount of whites that they have is freaking scary.
Yeah,
That part where they all run over the cliff is
And
yeah.
they collapse the wall.
That's really cool.
And, oh.
I also like the shot of the White like climbing under the gate. Where it's like
Yeah.
it's just like freaking out and like there's a lot of like really cool stuff.
And there's some great, just genuine horror movie moments, even though it's not building the tension in the same way. Just like where they start coming at the Then, who's looking through, and then one gets shot in the eye and just keeps coming.
Yeah.
Oh, and you see here, Jon does some awesome fighting. It's so fun to watch.
Yeah.
the part where the German lady sees those children is terrifying.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
There's
that
one,
is
like, out eyes.
that is
And
a
they
truly
just
like
get her.
horrific. That's a total horror movie.
Just
kind of
even
thing
like
of,
the camera work on there, it's
And
like
they just,
this
like,
really
comes
slow
about-
dolly, and that holds really long on
Yeah.
those kids, and then
Yeah.
It does. I was like, wait, does she run? Like, I couldn't remember how exactly it happened, and then they just overwhelm her and destroy her. I'm like, man, that's creepy stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, the giant just then kind of is like, I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna walk through the water, and
Yeah.
you get a very good moment of just the lead White Walker and Jon just having a freaking Western showdown as they sail away. Like, so many. I thought this was so well made, and just out of the blue, just so much chaos and so much fun fighting. Dolores Ed makes that out alive, which I was worried about him.
Yeah, I was too
Little buddy.
actually, and I was glad that he
Yeah.
made it because he's cool. I like him.
And I really liked when they're on the boat and they, like, Jon and that White Walker are having that kind of, like, whatever. And then he just raises his hands and he rises like his whole army. And in that moment, you just see on his face, like, I just stole your army and now they're going to be mine and
it's
we're
just
coming for
completely
you.
silent. Like there's no like, it's really
it's
cool.
crazy.
And they close the gates at the beginning of this fight and they just are like there are tons of wildlings been there. And they're like, well, can't do anything. And then everything goes quiet before they all raise. And it's just like, it's a double-edged sword when it comes to losing to these guys.
I also one thing I appreciate about this, they like kind of duplicate the shot from the beginning of this of like you see the boat sailing into Hardhome and it's like, oh shit, that's crazy. Like you see kind of just this mass of people and then they do almost that exact same shot of them sailing away and you see just that same mass of people. It was just really cool to me. Like,
it was a really
that was a really
scene.
smart kind of visual thing. But yeah, super cool.
Oh, and it takes, again, like we get a White Walker in the opening scene of the show, and we slowly get these teases of like the danger of all this, but this just takes it to another level of, this is why the people at the wall don't understand like why Jon wants the wildlings on their side, and this is just one more demonstration of Jon is seeing a long game that nobody else understands.
Yeah.
I feel like even as an audience, the whole entire show, it's always kind of felt like a background threat and never truly like, I don't know. And I don't think it ever quite escapes this fully in the whole show, but it's always felt like they're so not one note, because obviously they're so mindless that it's like, oh, here's this big thing. They look so evil. It's like, of course they're gonna like conquer them. They might take a few people out on the way, but it's like they're gonna overcome these guys for sure. But this episode helps throw some doubt in there. I feel like of like, oh, this is a real danger and is a real like could do more damage than I think. I feel like,
and just this takes the last 25 minutes of the episode, and it's so fun. It is so cool.
Yeah, it's really good. I liked it a lot.
I guess let's look at what do you guys want to happen by the end of the season for a couple of characters here. What kind of progress or what kind of peak or climax should we see happen for some of these storylines?
So the two that I think of immediately are, I want to know what Daenerys wants long term, and I want Arya. I want something to happen with Arya. I don't know what it is exactly, what I want to happen, but like I'm just excited to see what happens with her and the Thin Man towards the end of this season, and I don't know if that results in her training more or if that's an experience that's like, okay, I need to go back. I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm just interested to see what the next threshold is for her, I guess, as far as like what she does. So
I think there is a point to be like, at the end of the season, no one is really has a perfect direction to their end game. Like a lot of people we understand their intentions, or of course they want to rule, but everyone is kind of like, to me, like Dany, okay, what is a successful end to this? You marry Hisdar and you're in full control of Marine and there's peace in Marine. Is that real? Like, I know that's not like her end all be all, but is that what the season's been building to? Like, everyone is kind of in a weird spot right now, right? Riley, what about you? What are you looking for in these last two?
I think those two that Tyler brought up are like two that I'm really interested in, but I also want to see what happens with Stannis and Winterfell. And I've never wanted anything from Stannis. Like, since I've been watching, I've never been really interested in him. But my hatred of the Boltons is like making me want Stannis to like go in there and like blow shit up and take it. And that's what I need something to happen there, because I am miserable watching all the Winterfell scenes right now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, season 5 is definitely, because Game of Thrones has also had has always had some accusations of being boring or violent or subversive to where the bad guy wins or the general story thing doesn't happen. I think season 5 is a peak of that in a lot of ways, and it's a tough hang. Like the fact that I think we busted through those 8 episodes pretty quickly for all of us watching wise, and it sets a lot of things up, but it also does a lot of things that just suck. And so I am excited to see the resolution to what's going on and the way it leads into, really, I think from season 6 or 8 you can really call it the downhill of like, okay, things are going to start coming together. And so I think season 5 is important. I think there are a lot of great moments and a lot of good acting, but it's a tougher slog. it is not the most beloved stretch of storytelling.
Hmm.
Tyler, any final thoughts on the first 8?
Nope. I haven't seen seasons 5 through 7 that we're at nearly as much as the first 4. So I can't even honestly remember a lot of what happens in the next 2 episodes. So I
remember a couple big things, but
yeah, same. It's like a couple big things, but everything else is like I have no clue. So I'm excited to watch them again.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be a blast. Join us next time for episodes 9 and 10 of season 5. I think it'll make everything worth it and get you really stoked for season 6, which is probably my favorite. So, hey, thanks for joining the Rewatchers on the wall. I hope you're sitting on top of a wall and rewatching also as well.
Which is what we are doing.
We're on a wall.
Oh yeah, we should tell people that. Like, we're gonna start doing live streams, and we're all just sitting on a wall the entire time that we say this.
We've been saving it. It's a big reveal.
Thanks for joining us. Mitchell Marshall here with Tyler McKinley, Tyler Harris, and Riley Harris. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.